Hey everyone, today I want to talk about something pretty serious, the idea of Satanism before and after the time of Christ. When most people hear the word Satanism, they think of creepy horror movies, strange rituals, or something that feels far away from real life. But what we're looking at here is more about how people across history have understood evil, rebellion against God, and the ongoing battle between good and evil forces in the world. The author we're talking about, William Guy Carr, spent decades digging into what he called the World Revolutionary Movement. For years, he gathered information but couldn't quite put the pieces together. Then, in 1943, while lying in a hospital bed after a serious injury, he picked up a Bible simply because he had nothing else to read. At first, it was just to pass the time, but as he read, something clicked. He began to feel that what he had thought were just random accidents in life were actually God's way of guiding him. And as he turned the pages, he started noticing that many Bible verses connected directly with historical events and even the things happening in his own time. That realization changed everything for him, and he came to believe Satanism wasn't just an idea, it was a real, powerful influence that shaped human history. Carr believed the Bible was the key to unlocking this mystery. To him, the Bible didn't just give spiritual lessons, it revealed how a hidden power was influencing governments, leaders, and nations from behind the scenes. He saw Satanism as the playbook, the instructions, for how rebellion against God spreads and operates in the world. He even suggested that the Old Testament could be read as a history of Satan's influence on humanity, showing how people fell deeper into bondage until Christ arrived to set them free. One of the things that grabbed his attention was how often Scripture mentions Satan. He pointed out that the Bible actually refers to Satan more times than it refers to Christ. And the Bible goes as far as calling Satan the prince of this world. To Carr, that wasn't just a poetic phrase. It meant Satan truly had power and influence over the way events played out, guiding things especially in directions that pulled people away from God's plan. Carr also paid attention to the meaning of the word world in the Bible. Sometimes it means the earth or humanity in general, but other times it clearly means the realm of evil. So when Jesus says, "I am not of this world," Carr believed he was showing the difference between God's kingdom and Satan's domain. From then on, Carr saw human history as one long story of struggle, Satan trying to block God's will, while Christ points the way for people to return to God. He even wrestled with the meaning of the Lord's Prayer. We all know the line, "And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil." Carr found himself asking, why would God lead anyone into temptation? That didn't sound right. He believed a better translation was, "And don't let us be led into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one." With this wording, temptation clearly comes from Satan, not God. That shift may seem small, but Carr thought it made a huge difference. It painted Satan as the direct source of all temptation and evil in the world, instead of leaving it open to interpretation. As Carr dug deeper, he became convinced that Satan's influence wasn't limited to people's private sins. He believed Satan and his servants, what he called the synagogue of Satan, were behind much larger movements in the world. To him, they were responsible for stirring up wars, revolutions, and divisions between people. They thrived on splitting humans apart by politics, race, religion, and economics, keeping everyone busy fighting one another so that Satan's hidden plan could move forward while no one noticed. He tied this idea into the concept of a one-world government. In Carr's eyes, the ultimate goal of Satanism was total control. Not just control of nations, but control over individuals, their bodies, their minds, and even their souls. Lies, deceptions, violence, assassinations, and wars were all just tools toward that same purpose, to enslave humanity under a dictatorship fueled by Luciferian ideals. Now some people might argue, but doesn't the Bible say that the gates of hell will never prevail against the church? Carr agreed with that promise, but he warned that it didn't mean Christians should sit back and relax. He believed that Christians had a duty to fight lies with truth, to live boldly as followers of Christ, and to resist the tricks of Satan. If lies were the devil's main weapon, then truth had to be ours. Carr looked at history as evidence of how this all worked. He brought up the Inquisition in the Middle Ages, when church leaders tortured and executed people in the name of Christ. To him, this was a huge victory for Satan. Instead of revealing the devil's schemes, the church ended up acting in ways that made faith look cruel and heartless. And when people saw that, they turned away from God. Carr said this was exactly the kind of trick Satan had been using for centuries, turning good intentions into tools of destruction, creating division, violence, and corruption over and over again. By the 1700s, Carr argued, the conspiracy was being led by powerful, wealthy men, people who weren't witches in the woods, but highly educated and influential leaders. According to him, they secretly worshipped Lucifer and plotted how to gain control over entire nations. Meanwhile, small-time occultists and witches were often blamed, which distracted people from noticing the bigger, hidden powers quietly working toward a much larger goal: the destruction of governments, religions, and anything that could stand in the way of their complete control. Carr even believed Satanism reached into every corner of life: politics, finance, media, science, industry, and even the drug trade. In his view, anything that could weaken people, divide them, or trap them was fair game. He even argued that certain laws, like prohibition, actually gave Satanists more power because they created black markets and underground empires that could be controlled by these hidden forces. What looked like moral rules on the surface could actually give more strength to evil groups in the shadows. But for Carr, the biggest battle wasn't just about money or governments. It was about the human mind. That's why he saw propaganda and lies as such dangerous weapons. They don't just change people's actions, they change the way people think and believe. And once the mind is captured, the soul can easily follow. To him, this was the heart of Satan's strategy. By the time Carr wrote all this, he believed the world was entering another high point of Satan's influence. He saw wars, revolutions, destructive weapons, and social collapse as signs that Satan's plan was reaching its peak. But he didn't think this meant all hope was lost. In fact, he believed the opposite, that every single person still had the power to choose. Each individual could side with God, resist deception, and help others see through the lies. So in the end, whether or not you agree with every part of Carr's ideas, his message comes down to something simple but powerful: history, faith, and world events are not random. They are part of an ongoing struggle between truth and lies, between God's plan and Satan's rebellion. And every single one of us plays a role in that struggle. We all have to make a choice. Which side are we really on?